Welcome to the Elixir Sessions, where we explore the cutting edge of wellness and innovation. Today we're honored to have Diego Ugalde with us, a retired SEAL team member. Diego is the founder of the Trident Approach, a groundbreaking program that trains leaders to achieve peak performance through lessons from his SEAL team experience and insights from psychedelic medicine. Diego works with executives, athletes, and veterans to enhance consciousness in leadership and bring flow state dynamics to teams. Diego, thanks so much for sitting down with us today. We're eager to learn about your transformative journey. So what triggered this transformation?
The transformation that I experienced, it started, of course, while I was in the SEAL teams. The most common question I got from active duty or from corporate executives and athletes is, how is it that SEALs work and communicate so well together? I had answers for that, but I always found myself adding things that I knew well that we didn't do, things like compassion and connection to humanity. So when I retired in 2018 and I recognized that I had the ability to do really anything in the world that I wanted to do, that question kept coming to me. It's like, well, why don't we start a company that addresses that question as it is? And so that was super great. We went on this path. We were in business for about a year. And then one of my pathfinders, who's also a former Navy SEAL, came to me and said, Diego, I'm not coming into work next week. There's an organization that takes SEALs down to Mexico and treats them with psychedelics. And that was really crazy to me because that was the first time that I had ever heard psychedelics being used in the context of mental health. Up until then, I always thought it was like going to Disneyland or music festivals kind of thing, but I didn't necessarily care because I knew that he was struggling pretty deeply with PTS and even addiction and traumatic brain injury. So he came back. He had the vibrancy in his smile. He had a light in his eyes that we'd never seen. I mean, even his skin color was different. We were like, dude, what happened? And he's like, I have no words. I just got to introduce you to these people. So long story short, I went down there. I saw what they were doing. They were saving the lives of these veterans right out from under my nose. I eventually ended up doing the medicine myself. I became a psychedelic integration coach. And in the time that I was working as a psychedelic integration coach for these veterans organizations, still my drive was the leadership component that I had with the Trident Approach. And then it just came clear to me that there was nothing but connection between psychedelics and leadership. And so that's what we've eventually morphed into. So now what we do is we share the best of what we learned in the SEAL teams combined with our deepest insights from psychedelic medicine use. And that's our approach to leading the self in elite teams.
Can you explain the significance of the Trident badge in your work?
When you become a SEAL, it's a huge honor. It's something they give you to wear in your uniform. It's referred to as a trident, and it's an eagle that's carrying an anchor, a flintlock pistol, and an actual trident. It's what shows on your uniform that you're actually a Navy SEAL. It's come to mean a couple of different things since we've gone on. Personal team and self leadership, that kind of thing. Yeah, it can mean many things, but that's really where it came from.
When did you serve as a Navy SEAL?
I was a SEAL from 2003 to 2015. So I had a 20-year career, but I had 15 years of that 20 years in the SEAL teams. I tried to be a SEAL in the beginning. I failed out of training. I went through this whole long process, 10 years as it turns out. And then I finally came back in. And when I did come back in, I had 15 years of service in the community.
How do all the different aspects of what you do connect together?
From the SEAL approach is that there's like a lot of no nonsense, a lot of no excuses, and a lot of no this or that, whatever, just matter of fact, but still things that are very useful, but it's still missing this huge component of just being human, that mistakes are coming anyway, that people aren't always at their best, people don't always tell the truth, people don't always this and that, whatever. When you go into psychedelics, or when I went into psychedelics, I started to experience the humanity in humanity. And the humanity in myself, like all of this grace that I was denying myself. And then so when I started to look at that from a leadership perspective, I was recognizing not only can I have some grace for myself, but I can also have grace for people who are working for me, right? And not at their best for all kinds of reasons. And who knows and who cares? But I felt like combining the two of, accountability with awareness and consciousness, I felt was a really super cool approach to leading the self and leading teams that I thought could really help anybody. And there's balance in it all. Because if you just do the psychedelic approach, it's like, oh man, everything's cool. If you do everything is cool, nothing ever gets done.
What's your definition of leadership?
I really do think that everybody's a leader on some level. It's just, how do you classify the leader that you are, if that's something you feel like you're called to do? For me, I classify myself as a conscious leader, as somebody who's aware of the self, somebody who is aware of that self existing within others, and also somebody who has healed past some pretty significant traumas that used to hold me back in the past, and things that I was completely unaware of. For example, like ego. I swear, I didn't even know I had an ego until I did Ibogaine, because I never walked into a room thinking I was better than anybody. And so to me, that was my limited understanding of what ego was. And so, when somebody talked about ego and all this stuff, and I'm like, well, I don't have to worry about that. I'm good. But then I went to Ibogaine, and it's like, here you go. This is your ego. And it's only then, when I was like 41 or 42 years old, where I recognized that there was this thing that was driving my ship, and I was completely unaware of it. So it was making leadership decisions for me. It was making personal decisions for me. It was, attaching to thoughts and all these things. And I'm just sitting here, just floating along, just getting hammered by this stuff the entire time. So just becoming aware of ego, and aware sometimes of how it interacts in this kind of thing, I can say, oh, that's just my ego. I don't have to worry about, filtering that down to my people. It can just hold it right here, do what I need to do with it, and let it go. And they don't need to see any of that. I mean, that has a huge impact on leadership and how you lead teams.
How did you become aware of your ego and its role in your life?
I became aware of my ego when I was about, there's timelessness in psychedelics, right? So I'm sitting with Ibogaine. And so for all I know, maybe 15 or 20 minutes in, I discovered also, for the first time of my life, that there was something bigger than me that was also part of me. And so I started getting this incredible school session from myself, from all of us. And it was incredibly enlightening. It was incredibly informative. All of these things, these questions that I had about even questions that I didn't even know I had, were being answered. And then all of a sudden, the bottom right corner of my awareness came this little pestering voice of negativity and dismantling, and then it started to turn super nasty. And it started to really eat at my core of all the things that I was ashamed of, that I did in my life, that I was afraid of. All of these things, it just started. And I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what it was until the following day, after I was out of the medicine and I was talking to my integration coach. And it was just such a shock. And not only was it a shock because I recognized that there was this thing that was within me the whole of my life, that at the time it seemed like it was working to dismantle everything that I was. I don't think I had a chance in actually doing anything about it. It was so powerful and so massive. And so it was very defeating. So I had this, my progression then was to, I was like, well, I got to kill this thing because it's god awful and I don't want it in any part of my life. And the whole time I was thinking that, it was just celebrating and dancing in its wickedness around, oh yeah, you think you're going to kill me, kind of thing. And then, that lasted maybe for a couple of days or so, because we were still deeply within the retreat. So there was still a lot of growth that was going on. But then I realized, like, man, my whole life is in teams. This thing's got to be on my team. Hey man, let's work as a team. And it's like, yeah, let's work as a team, and it just played with me like that for several months. And then I recognized that I wasn't moving anywhere with that. And then I was like, well, wait a minute. Also part of my life is leadership. I need to lead this thing. I need to tell it what to do. And it's like, yeah. Why don't you go ahead and tell me what to do? And then it played with me like that for like a year. And then finally, I went to this. I was just sitting in my backyard meditating, just on the yin and yang symbol, for like an hour, and I'm just looking, and then it hit me that I cannot know light without knowing the darkness. I cannot know happiness without knowing sadness. I cannot know peace without knowing struggle. And that's when it hit me that, in my mind, the way that I see it is that it is the ego's function to give me these things so that I can understand what it is to be truly free. so that I can understand what it is to be truly powerful. And when I recognized that and I started to look at the ego as my great teacher, there was no real struggle like that anymore, like on day one anymore. There's definitely a struggle. There's definitely things that I need to learn and tighten up and this and that, whatever, but it's not like this thing that I need to destroy anymore. So now whenever I'm afraid or ashamed or there's resistance or whatever it is, I can choose to ignore it like always, or I can sit, bring up another chair and say, what are you trying to teach me? And so that's like the progression of what the ego has come to mean to me in my life. And so for all I know, it's still, oh, yeah, that's what you, I don't know, but I've been at peace since then.
Can you share your thoughts on imposter syndrome and how to overcome it?
So addressing imposter syndrome is really just all whittled down to just introducing people's selves to their egos. Because that's really all it is. It's like, yo, you don't deserve to be here. Of course you do. Everyone deserves to be everywhere they are. And so it's just really a matter of helping them understand what even a limiting thought actually is, where it comes from for them. It's not for us to tell people what to do. It's just to help them find their way. And so when people understand that they are not their thoughts and that there is something that is hardwired within all of us to teach us in that way by giving us this imposter syndrome so that we can transcend, so we can understand that we belong everywhere. I think through that process that there is no more suffering in that sense when people really come to deeply understand that. And that's a really key component, because it's one thing to be aware of the information. That's fair enough. But there are levels that go above awareness in order for it to stick, because people often feel like, well, I have a logical awareness that I shouldn't have imposter syndrome, but still I'm suffering. And so all that is just an imbalance with their logical mind and their state of being. And so what we do is we help them elevate their state of being through their own awareness so that it comes into balance. And so whenever they get those thoughts of, what are you doing here? You don't belong here. You let it come, you sit with it, you maybe learn from it and you let it go, and then it just leaves and you just are where you are. What people are reaching out for us to do is we take people out on the beach and we get their hands dirty in leadership, kind of Navy SEAL style. From the outside, it looks like SEAL training. From the inside, really powerful things are happening, like ego awareness and how they perform under stress in the areas of communication, leadership, and cultural alignment and teamwork and trust and that kind of thing. And like I said, what that can look like, it is people running around the beach getting wet and sandy and that type of stuff. But the thing is, it's not the point of making people go through these evolutions to suffer. It's not. It's to bring the voice of resistance that's within so loud within that they cannot deny it. And when that happens, when they're hearing that voice, that's when we can really start to do the work, because that's the voice that inhibits them, that creates fear in the workplace, that creates tension amongst coworkers, that prevents people from communicating clearly and kindly to each other at work, all of those things. So we want that to come to the surface so people can, number one, become aware of it, and number two, learn how to gain sovereignty over it. And so, yeah, we do that by having them go through like mini Navy SEAL missions that last about 15, 20 minutes a piece. And we do like all these stations, and there's really deep and powerful lessons that are learned. And especially when people really open up to the training and they open up to the process of learning and being vulnerable. I mean, crying happens all the time. Hugs happen all the time. And a lot of graciousness and gratitude happens a lot within the work. Is like, I just have never seen you on this level before. You're not who I thought. You're not who I thought you were. So, maybe we can have a discussion in a different way next time. Those types of things happen all the time through our training. And that's why we love really so much what we do.
What is your perspective on integrating medicine into leadership training?
Stateside, we don't give any medicine. What we did with the beach events is we tried to create an event that elicited psychedelic-like states, completely absent of the medicine. And so we do that, like I said, by bringing ego awareness and just having people see sometimes for the first time how they actually show up to the world rather than how they think they show up. But what we can also do is for people who are seeking actual plant medicine treatment, we have deep and powerful connections with healers from South America and in Mexico, native healers, that we take them through these trusted facilities that we've been through ourselves. And we sit with them through the medicine for, 1, 2, 3, or 4 days. and then we come back, and then there's a whole integration process that goes along with that as well. So the medicine for sure is not for everyone. We don't even really talk about, we don't offer that stuff, but what happens is people recognize that it is some of the things that we've helped to facilitate, and when that happens, that's how we do it. So we use the mechanisms that are already in place with the healers and the facilitators, and even the landscape and the medicine itself, to help people go through these medicine journeys and sit with them as they go through their process. And that's how we facilitate those processes.
Diego Ugalde's unique perspective on leadership and teamwork is a game changer. His integration of SEAL team principles with the transformative power of psychedelics offers a new blueprint for growth and consciousness. Thank you, Diego, for sharing your powerful story and vision. See you on the next Elixir session, where we uncover unconventional wellness leaders doing amazing things.